Coming up on this episode of Real Talk Rentals, we're going to talk marketing your property. Welcome to Real Talk Rentals, a podcast brought to you by OnQ Property Management. We're here to give you a behind-the-scenes look at owning a rental property, all the tips, tricks, and secrets that go into owning an investment. I'm Ben, and I'll be your host. And with me, as always, is Mr. Eric Dixon, the go-to expert on all things property management and real estate. So today, what we're going to be talking about is marketing. And by that, I mean, you got your home rent ready. You're ready. Tenants have paid the deposit or haven't paid the deposit. You're looking for tenants. You need to put it on the market. What happens now? So, Eric, I'm going to throw this to you. How do you market a rental property?
Well, dude, I should be asking you.
Yeah.
Ben is our Ben's our marketing guru, you know, from the company perspective. But yeah, I guess today we'll be talking more about marketing just the rentals.
Yeah,
right?
just the homes.
So it's funny because it's been asked before, you know, hey, what do you guys do to market my house? Like that's a common question that prospective clients or even current clients, right, are asking. Because in their mind, they're thinking, all you guys do is take pictures on your iPhone and throw them up on Zillow, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so, you know, what do you guys do that other people do or don't do? So I took some notes because you kind of gave me a heads up on some of this, but because I wanted to make sure not to miss a few things. So the beginning of marketing a home actually starts prior to that because it'll help you determine what you need to do to market it. So it starts on whether you live there and you're going to rent it out or your tenant lives there. It's the rent ready inspection and rent ready work process that you gotta think about. The reason I say that is because you have to decide, am I going to replace the carpet? Am I going to repaint? Am I going to put in a new backyard? Or am I just going to Band-Aid and lipstick a pig on this thing to try and get it, you know, rented as soon as possible? Because depending on what you choose is going to determine how you're going to market it. If you're just going to kind of get by with the minimum effort possible, the minimum amount of money possible, then you're going to market it at a lower value, a lower price, and try and give somebody a value rental. And that's going to be a different marketing strategy than, hey, I'm going to do granite countertops, new sinks, new appliances, new backyard, and I'm going to demand top rent.
Right.
So my whole point is it's not as easy as just like, hey, Ben, what are you going to list my house for? It's like, well, let's discuss the condition, your upgrades, and the surrounding market real quick before I answer your, your question.
Right.
And a lot of people are like, oh, dude, you're just trying to sell me now. And it's like, no, it's more than taking pictures on my phone and throwing them up on Zillow.
Right.
So, and then the last thing was just the, you look at your immediate market. So whether you live in a subdivision, maybe an HOA subdivision, master plan community type thing, what are they renting for in this subdivision? And then what is my competition outside the subdivision? Because they may be looking at, oh, I'd love to live there, but I can live a mile away and save $300 a month for a year. Like,
yeah, across the city line, and all of a sudden.
Oh yeah, no, and there's a lot of that. I'm going to throw in some numbers because we're recording this in late September 2022. So the reason that's relative is because I just looked at some rental stats because the market is quickly changing and saturating here in the market. The sky's not falling. The market's still great, but it is correcting a little bit. One of the things that you want to look at when you're marketing a rental is what has the data looked like the last 1 to 2 years? And so I'm just going to throw a couple cities out there because it's astonishing how many more rentals there are now than there was 2 years ago. And this is also going to speak to, if you're an investor that owns or wants to own rentals, buy rentals as soon and as often as you can, because the data just shows that there is still high demand for rentals. In some of our outlying cities, whether it's Santan Valley, Maricopa, Buckeye, Avondale, there are between 5 and 10 times more rentals available in those cities than there was 2 years ago.
That's insane.
And it's insane, right? And it's kind of like, well, Eric, why would I buy then if there's that many rentals? 2 years ago, it was kind of during the pandemic and stuff like that. It was artificially low, and now it's kind of catching up with itself. Mm-hmm. And rents got out of control there for a little bit, and now they're kind of leveling off. But the reason I mention that is because if one of my friends just says, hey, Eric, what would you do to market my home? And it's like, well, where is it? If it's in Santan Valley that has 10 times more rentals than 2 years ago, we're going to market this a heck of a lot different than if I, picked someplace in Scottsdale that has the same amount of rentals as they had 2 years ago.
Sure. And Santan, to your point, for people don't know the area, like 2 years ago, it was kind of considered out there. Like there was no Target, there was no grocery store. You were, driving a long distance, and now it's booming.
Yeah, and they've opened a new freeway out there. All this commercials getting built, tons of homes are getting built. And so it's not a negative stat to say there are 10 times more rentals available in Santan Valley.
It's just the market's different.
It's just the market's different. So you need to adjust. And some people are getting hurt because they bought a brand new home at the top of the market, expecting top rent. And now rents are not as high, but they paid top dollar. And it's like, hey, for the next 1 to 3 years, you might have to take a haircut. But long term, this is gonna pay for itself. Right. Santan Valley, it used to be, man, that is so far. And now it's like, oh yeah, I want to meet for lunch in Santan Valley.
Yeah, half our office lives there now.
And so I won't bore anybody else with more stats and stuff like that. It's more just realizing that location totally matters when you're marketing. And then the last thing is, as you're determining those things, right, you're looking at the immediate market, the subdivision, the condition, the upgrades. Then you determine what kind of incentives you're going to offer. If we're listing a house in a neighborhood that you're the only rental, you don't need to offer all these incentives. If there are 10 times more rentals in the neighborhood than there was 2 years ago, you need to stand out. You need to offer 2 weeks free rent. You need to offer, pay the security deposit over 2 or 3 months. You need to maybe go $200 less than what you thought you were going to get, whatever it is.
And in some of these new subdivisions, especially, the homes kind of are interchangeable. So if someone comes to your neighborhood and they're like, well, that one's $100 cheaper. These are the same model and floor plan.
It's the same floor plan, but the garage is on the other side and it's $100 less a month. Guess which one they're going to take.
Exactly.
So that's kind of what it is. From there, then you're doing pictures, lockbox sign, digital marketing, syndicating on all the websites and stuff. But keep in mind, I answered your question as far as how do you market it? And it's not even on the market yet.
Right.
This is all pre-marketing. You got to have these discussions, and the landlord needs to commit. What am I going to do before we take pictures? They'll ask us, Eric, is it worth it to replace the carpet? And I always tell people, if you're asking yourself the question, the answer is yes.
Right.
It's like, hey, these holes in the walls, should I patch these up or no? It's like, you ask the question because you know that somebody's going to ask, man, that looks really bad.
Yeah.
And so, hey, Eric, should I landscape the backyard or just keep it dirt?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to let you repeat that to yourself. And
it's like before I go out with my wife, I come up and I say, does this match?
Yeah.
And she's like, the fact that you don't know should tell you now it does not match.
That's your answer. Your question is the answer.
Exactly. Well, I think to that point, that was going to be my second question, which is, how long does it take to get a permit? We hear that all the time, especially on the marketing, our business sales side. People say, okay, I'm going to sign with you. How long until my rental is on the market and ready to go?
Yeah. And so I'll go from kind of two perspectives. One is, if you're self-managing, it's good, how fast will determine on how much time you have, because the truth is, once it's on the market, if it's priced right, pictures are great, the condition's good, leads are going to start coming in. You got to work the leads. You can't just answer the phone and it rents. Especially now, it's like the market is more competitive. Right. You've got to sell them. And it's like, say Ben's self-managing his property, gets a lead on Zumper or something to his cell phone while he's at work. And it's like, hey, can you show the house in an hour? And you're like, oh crap, I'm going to take a late lunch. I'm going to be late for my kid's soccer game tonight, whatever. You just have to determine how much time you're willing to put into it. If you hire a management company, they should be, at least during business hours, should be answering the phone. And then they should have some sort of solution after hours, or some self-showing technology or something where they can actually work the leads.
Yeah, or returning calls.
Yeah, returning calls.
Messages,
yep, and all that stuff. So I would say, how long does it take? It depends on three things. Price, obviously. I mean, it's like, if you under-market it price-wise, it's going to rent immediately. If you're too high, it's going to take too long. The second would be condition. Is it look good and smell good? And I tell owners, it's like, does it look good? Yeah, it looks awesome. Does it smell good? Does it smell like your pets?
Yeah.
Or does it smell like smoke? Or does it smell like what you ate for dinner last night?
Yeah.
And then upgrades is a big one. So, how is it original, built in the 80s, nothing's ever been replaced? Or is it a complete fix and flip? It looks great, it's move-in ready, or is it a brand new construction home?
Yeah.
Ironically, brand new does not necessarily mean upgrades and condition are the best.
Right.
They're missing blinds. They're missing a backyard. They have no fans, appliances they didn't buy with the house.
Yeah.
And these owners are like, it's a brand new house built in 2022. What are you saying? I need more. It's like, dude, there's no fridge. There's no washer dryer. There's no blinds. There's no fans. There's no backyard.
Yeah.
And you want top rent.
Yeah.
And so a lot of this is just educating them. And then it actually brings me to this point. So I actually watched this on Instagram. I was scrolling through some real estate reels and stuff. I love wasting time doing that late at night. Where my wife and I laying in bed just looking at hilarious stuff we'll send back and forth. And there's a contractor that said, this is how you sell, it's actually a popular like reel, but it's like, hey, this is how you sell your service. It's like you can either do it. There's three things. I either can do it fast, I can do it cheap, or I can do it good. But you only can have two of those three things, right?
Right.
So you can have it fast and good. Well, it's not going to be cheap. Well, I want it fast and cheap. It ain't going to be good.
Yeah.
He kind of goes through that. And so as I related that to our team recently with renting your home, it's the exact same thing. So all owners want three things, right? They want the fastest lease time. They want it to lease overnight. Surprise.
Yeah.
They want the most qualified tenant. 800 credit score, makes $300,000 a year, no debt.
Somehow is a renter and doesn't have a home.
Somehow is renting, retired from Boeing, whatever. They want the most qualified applicant. And then they want the highest rental rate too. I mean, just to top it all off, I want the highest rate. So then say fastest lease time, most qualified applicant, and I want top rent. But we have to educate our owners and say, if you can get one or two of those, you have to be thrilled. Yeah. So just go through, say, hey, Ben, you can have two of those. I want the fastest lease time and the highest rent. Okay, well, it's not going to be the most qualified applicant because you have to open the net wider. You have to say, well, I'm going to go lower on FICO score. Maybe I'm not as concerned about an eviction. Maybe I'm not as concerned about that. Say, well, no. I want the most qualified app. So do you know what? I want the most qualified app and as fast as possible. All right, then you got to lower your rental rate.
Yeah.
Or
give them a reason to choose you instead of somebody else.
And it's like, okay, undercut the other guy by $100 a month.
Yeah.
It's a $500,000 asset. If you're dying over $100 a month, you need to get out of the rental business, dude.
Right.
Or, I want the fastest lease time and the most qualified applicant. No, that's the one
that was what you said. Yeah. So fastest lease time and highest. Oh, no.
Dude, I'm reading off paper and I screw this up. So then it's fastest lease time and the highest rent. We talked about you got to make a lower quality.
Yeah. Or the most qualified applicant and the
highest rent. Well, dude, it's going to take forever. So if you're like, I want top rent and I want top tier applicant, they're out there. They're just rare, right?
Yeah,
so
you got to wait.
It's going to take longer time. And we'll get into it a little bit later, but it's like lease time on market is where people lose the most money. So most people are like, do you know what? At the end of the day, I need to lease as soon as possible. I don't want to over-compromise on quality or rent rate, but I do want it to lease as fast as possible. And that's actually, again, this is not a plug just for OnQ, but for a lot of great property management companies, you want to rent properties fast to very qualified tenants. And so it's like sometimes that means the rental rate is not going to be top. And we're not going to under rent it, but it's actually one of our taglines. It's like better tenants faster. And it's going to be because we'll have hard conversations with you and say, hey, Ben, I know we told you 2,300 a month ago, but because of XYZ, here's the comps, here's what's going on. You got to lower it to 21. I'm sorry it's less than you thought, but blah, blah, blah. Then we get it rented for $200 less to an awesome applicant. They stay for 3 years. They don't damage the house. And they're like, do you know what? That was the right move. So
yeah. Well, I think that flows perfectly into my next question, which is what are the costs of advertising a rental property? We're talking about dollar amounts now. So what are the costs that go into marketing for a rental property?
Yeah. So, and again, appealing to those of you listening that are self-managing. So a lot of you guys are like, well, it's not worth it to pay a property manager. Whatever.
Sure.
I don't believe that, but hey, we're biased, right? But for a self-manager, it could be just nickel and dime stuff here and there. Like you're going to list it on websites. I know Zillow has a free tool for the first time you market it, but the next time it costs money. If you want it to be on the premium listing, which we use, you pay per day or per week.
Sure.
There's going to be app fees, if you have somebody do an application and to screen them, lease preparation. There's going to be, little software services, however you're collecting rent. Hopefully you're not using Cash App or Zelle or Venmo for rent collection, because you want some way to actually have a tenant ledger. So if you're doing it through Zelle or Venmo or whatever, I would legitimize it a little bit. Yes, you'll pay a little fee for some sort of third-party software, but I would definitely consider that if you were going that route, or just, hire us to manage it.
There you
go. Most importantly, if you're self-managing, the highest cost is your time. And it sounds cliche. It's like, well, it doesn't take that much time until you get a text that your tenant's having issues while you're at church with your family on Sunday morning, or you're on vacation, or you're at your work where you're supposed to be on top of your job.
Yeah.
And you're texting and stressing about your tenants,
Yeah.
So I would say the most cost is time. So just calculate, what is my time worth? And sometimes it's like, well, I make X amount an hour at my job. I could do better at my job and make more money than I'm going to save.
Not drive down to let people in every time they want to see the home or something,
Yeah. And I can tell you, it's not everybody, but when I was signing up owners for us for years and years and years, I got to rub shoulders with people that realized that their time is worth more than dealing with the issues with their rentals. And it's not because they weren't capable. I mean, dude, these are amazing men and women who bought rentals, investors, some of them accidental landlords, and they sat down and said, dude, my time is worth way more than X.
Right.
Like, I just cannot justify it. And then in addition to that, management fees and stuff are tax deductible anyway. So
sure.
I would say as you're self-managing, your cost to advertise or market is time. Everything else is ancillary, and you'll figure it out. If you hire a management company, and we won't go through our fee structure, but it's more, you're going to have some sort of fee to put it on the market and lease it.
Right.
I mean, whether it's one fee, might be 1 month's rent, half month's rent, flat fees, whatever it is, you're going to have some sort of fee for pictures, lockbox, signs, screening, background checks, credit checks, sex offender check, eviction history, landlord history, lease prep, move in, driving to the property to and from, move-in inspections, all that stuff is usually combined into one or two fees, and so you're just going to want to, figure that out. And then another fee could be an MLS co-broke, they call it. So cooperating brokerage commission. If, let's say a RE/MAX agent shows our house, rents it, we owe him a cooperating commission.
Okay.
So those are kind of the biggest fees. And so it's really just ask yourself, what's your time worth?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. You and I talked about a couple things here.
Well, I think you touched on it in the last question, which is the biggest cost is just not having tenants in there.
Oh, yeah. So, and what we like to call these is hidden costs.
Right.
So these are the, when people always call, like, what are the hidden fees? What are the things you're not telling us?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, the biggest hidden fee is actually not in our agreement, because it's not one of our fees. It's not in the lease. It's not in the, our property management agreement. It's vacancy. It kills you. Freaking kills you. So let's just use an example. It's $2,000 a month. You know what? We're going to do $3,000 because I suck at math. So $3,000 a month. That's $100 a day of rental income. That's an amazing asset, right? But every day that is vacant, it's costing you $100. Yes, you're not writing a check out to somebody for 100, but you're not cashing a check from somebody for $100. And so that's just one. So it's rental rate, right? While it's on the market, you have the utilities on. In Arizona, it's a killer. You can't keep the AC off in the summer. Even if you keep it at 85, which is not habitable, it's going to cost you at least a couple $100 a month in AC, electric bill. If you have a pool, you have pool service. Everybody has landscaping, so you got landscape service. Yeah. And if it sits longer than a month or two, you're going to have pest control, right? So if that property sits vacant for 90 days, you've got $9,000 of missed rent. You've got $500 to $800 of utility bills, and that's just electricity. You've got water, sewer, trash, electricity, gas. Then you've got recurring services, so pest control, pool service, and landscaping. So it's like, if this sits vacant, you'll lose over $10,000, Ben, or lower the rent to $2,700, and we'll rent it in 2 weeks.
Yeah. And then in that same time span, you would be down $900 of what you thought you were going to make. But you've got a quality tenant and you're not paying all those ancillary costs.
Yeah. And so you'd be shocked. Like we have a list of homes that are on the market for over 40 days. And these are people that we're telling every week, multiple times a week, lower the rent, here's why. Lower the rent, here's why. Let me educate you on this. And they're like, no, I bought this house. My realtor told me it was going to rent for $3,000. And you're like, well, we're in the property management business. We lease houses, and that is way too high.
Yeah.
But then they realize eventually they listen and they lower the price and they lease. And then you look back and you're like, dude, let's calculate this. You just lost out on $6,000, $4,000. This isn't just
to save $100.
To save $100, you know? And so those are the hidden costs, right? Yes, you save even if you're self-managing. Yeah, you save the leasing fee, you save the marketing fee, but you under rented your house by $200 a month.
Yeah.
Because you didn't know how to market it correctly. Well, then let's say $200 a month for a year, you lost out on $2,400 of potential rent because you wanted to save $700 paying your manager to lease it out.
Right.
So it's just, I mean, we say it verbally and it's just like, it sounds so stupid, really.
Yeah.
But
if you don't know, you don't know.
If you don't know, you don't know. So it's not even saying, hey, if you self-manage, you're stupid. That wasn't the right word. It's really just like, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Hire an expert who can get you the best qualified tenant for the highest rent amount as fast as possible. You know, that balance.
Yeah.
And then the last hidden cost we talk about all the time with our salespeople is expertise. And so what you're paying for when you're paying your management company a percentage or a flat fee or whatever you're paying for their time and their service, whatever. But really what you're paying for is their expertise. All of our property managers have been through evictions. All of them have collected late rent. All of them have done a move out that's been absolutely atrocious. But they've also done move outs that are great. And they've have 800 credit score tenants, and they have wonderful, wonderful families that we manage for, you know, tenants and owners. And it's, you know, the 10,000 hours of experience in managing property versus you've owned a rental for 3 months.
Right.
You've put like 9 hours into it.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because, you know, you hear from our property managers and they're like, you know, I'm trying to tell them this tenant's got a little bit of a lower credit score, but they should take it. And it's like, you know, they don't want to place a bad tenant. They're the ones who are going to have to be dealing with it, you know? So if they're coming to you saying, hey, you know, I think this is the way to go, like, it's not in our best interest.
No. And dude, I mean, you're saying you hear it all the time, but I get calls that are like, Eric, I'll just use credit score because it's so relatable, right? All of us know, well, if you're listening to this, you should probably know what your credit score is ish, right? But some of our owners, they own rentals, right? They're investors. They have good income, whatever. Most of them have great credit. And so we get somebody that, I'm not going to say a score, but let's say it's below average.
Sure.
Whatever. And they're like, I can't believe we're renting to somebody with that credit score. And I'm like, whoa. I've been in this industry a long time, over a decade. That's a great credit score. Not just for a tenant, but like, dude, they've tried really hard to achieve this score where it's above our minimum criteria. You cannot deny them for having that score. And they're just like, oh, I would never let my daughter marry somebody with that credit score. No, I've like literally had people say that. I'm like, okay, what we need to do is, you're paying us to be the expert.
Right.
I'm telling you as the expert that this credit score is far and beyond what the minimum should be. Right.
Yeah.
The other thing you're paying for in expertise is the stuff to protect you liability wise, you know, fair housing laws in Arizona, the Arizona state laws, they change, they have different statutes that update and stuff. And you're paying us to know that stuff. Right. So that you're not stuck on your heels when a tenant sues you and you're like, man, I didn't even know that was a law. Like, that you're totally messed up. Well,
that was going to be my last question is, are there, when it comes to marketing, are there laws about marketing rentals and the ways you can do it? Yeah. So I'd say the simplest version, or the simplest way to say it, is you have to be fair. So there's the federal fair housing laws. You know, you have the 7 protected classes, and then depending on your city, and this is where it's like, you pay for the expertise, right? A lot of people don't realize that in the city of Mesa, we're in Phoenix, you know, and the suburb is Mesa, one of the biggest, actually suburbs of any metropolitan area, has its own fair housing laws in addition to the federal fair housing laws, right? So they have more protected classes in Mesa than we do in Gilbert. And they're right next to each other. And you could drive, you know, we drive to lunch to go to Mesa all the time. Right. It's a mile away, right? And so a lot of people wouldn't realize that. So they self-manage a house in Mesa. Maybe they live in Mesa too. Oh, did you know that this protected class is actually, this is protected in Mesa, whereas in Gilbert it's not? Like, a lot of these self-managers are breaking laws there. Yeah. With fair housing.
in Tucson, 2 hours south of here, we have another office, and the federal fair. There's the federal, and then there's the city of Tucson has more protected classes than the federal level, and it's like most people don't know that.
Yeah, why would you?
So I'd say fair housing is a big one. I mean, yes, you can learn it on your own. You can Google it. You can look in your city. You can make sure to stay fair. Ultimately, you just have to be fair and equal to all applicants.
Right.
So, you can't say things like, hey, we only want to rent to a family. And I know in theory, you're like, oh, yeah, I just want a mom and a dad and some kids and a dog,
Right.
and I want them to walk to
I
school
raised my
every day.
family in this house, and it was great.
But it's like, you can't put that. You'll go on Zillow to self-managers, and it will literally say, like, no kids. And you're like, oh. Yeah. And so we'll take over some of these, right? They're not renting, so they hire us to manage it. We look at the ad, and we're like, hey, so-and-so, we want your business, but let's talk real quick. You're okay with us not doing this, right? Because you definitely can't say no kids.
Because this is straight up illegal.
No, totally. Or no, dude, we have some that they say no service animals. It's like, that's illegal.
Yeah.
Just right off the bat, just illegal. And so a part of that, again, is we talked about it a few episodes ago about intentional and unintentional breaking the rules.
Yeah.
I think you said something that maybe is about families or kids.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, they literally they'd love to have a family there, but they don't want to break the law. So if they have to choose, they're like, no, I don't want to break the law, dude. OnQ can handle my stuff. Yeah. But it was an unintentional fair housing violation to say, no, Eric, we want 2 or more kids, and it's a neighborhood. It's a family friendly neighborhood.
Yeah.
And we're like, can't do that. So I would say rules wise, there's those. Those are the laws, right?
Yeah.
Now, the unwritten rules within the industry to be a professional in the industry or a professional self-managing landlord is make sure your house is clean. Make sure it's presentable. It passes the sniff test. It's kind of, and I say unwritten rule because it's not illegal to list a property that's dirty. Yeah. But it's like, don't waste everybody's time. Don't, and I know we've gotten some feedback that's like, hey, your house isn't clean. It's like, oh my gosh, the cleaners didn't go, or we had it scheduled, and there are things that happen.
Or it's been on the market for 60 days. People have been going in and out of there.
Oh yeah. No, we recently had an owner, I think it was over 90 days, and we are battling them on price, man. I mean, it was just like, they actually bought this brand new build and were told by the salespeople, hey, they rent for, I think it was like $2,700. It ended up renting for $21,000, significant, right? And they're going to be negative cash flow for years. It's an unfortunate situation, but they were upset because we did the move-in inspection. And they're like, hey, it needs a deep cleaning before these people move in on Tuesday. Like, there's been 35 showings over 90 days. They've used the toilets, unfortunately. There's weeds in the backyard. There's dust, and they're just like beside themselves. I bought this house brand new, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And so part of the unwritten rule is like, no, it's not against the law, but start this rental right on the right foot.
Right.
Let's get it cleaned. They're going to walk in and say, man, OnQ and this owner loved this property. I'm so excited to be a tenant.
Nice. Yeah. And I know we talked about this earlier, but like honestly representing the property, like I remember when I moved to Arizona from out of state, I had a limited time. My wife and I are coming. We've got 4 kids. We're line up 5 rentals to go look at, and we're doing it all online. We don't know these neighborhoods. We don't know anything. And we pick ones. Okay, kids will love this one. This one looks great. One of them had this beautiful big backyard. We're like, perfect. The kids will love it. We go to visit it, and it's just rocks in the backyard because the landlord, when he decided to put it up for rent, was like, well, I don't want to pay for landscaping. I don't want to worry about the plants dying. So he ripped everything out. And it was like, we would not have come and looked at this house if you had
says this lush green grass with trees.
Yeah, it looked beautiful, and then it was just rock, no patio, nothing. Just you walk out the door under rock.
Oh, dude, like we have owners all the time. Hey, can you use these pictures? I used them last time I rented it. I'm like, oh yeah, let's check. We're gonna take our own, but let's look. And it's like, oh, dude, the colors of the walls aren't even this color anymore. Yeah. Or the backyard. Yeah. It used to be grass. Or I actually bought a property that the tax records still show it has a pool. The previous listing has a pool. And then I went to go look at it, and I'm like, where's the pool? And it's buried. And I was like, oh, dude, I thought this property had a pool.
Yeah.
This whole time. If you go to Zillow, previous pictures, it had a pool.
Yeah.
And the owner's like, oh, yeah, the last tenant I rented it to, they're complaining about the pool, so we just buried it.
Yeah. It's
I'm like,
probably should have disclosed that.
yeah, dude. Like, it's a pool, man. It's like a $50,000 pool you just put underground.
Yeah. Well, great. I feel like we've gone through all the ins and outs and covered it pretty well. So,
well, dude, I felt like I did all the talking. I'll talk about rental marketing all day.
You're the expert on it.
Yeah. Later we'll talk about marketing. Our property management company. We can talk.
There we go. We can talk about building websites or something. I can talk for an hour about that. So. That's it for us this time. Make sure to leave a review. 5 stars really helps us out wherever you're listening. And if you can follow and subscribe to the podcast, that'd be awesome too. And we'll see you next time.